Today I'll be demonstrating my knowledge of the effects of aperture, shutter speed, exposure, and ISO. And basically what these all do, they work together to allow your camera to capture more light and information into a picture. First, I'm going to start off with aperture, and basically aperture is like a set of blades inside of your lens that either they basically cover the lens, or they open up the lens to allow more light into the frame or the picture. And basically, if you have a wider aperture, that means your picture is going to be brighter because it's not going to be covering as much as the camera lens, and you're going to have like a more shallowy type frame. And if you have a smaller aperture, that means your hole is a lot smaller. Like basically that's the only way I can describe it, is your picture is going to be much darker, and but this will capture like a full frame, like the full depth of the picture. And you have a wide open aperture if your f-stop is a low number, so like 3.5 or like 5.5. And if you have a smaller aperture, if your f-stop is a 18 to 22 or something like that. And you can change this onto your camera. You can always change the aperture. So yeah, the next thing I will be talking about is the shutter speed, and basically this is how fast your camera takes a picture. So basically, if you have a faster shutter speed, that means your camera is just taking it like in a split second. So it means it's not capturing as much light as it would if you had a slower shutter speed, which is allowing more light and more exposure to come into the picture and the frame. And but if you have a faster shutter speed, that means your picture is going to be less blurred and more focused. But if you have a slower shutter speed, that means your picture is going to be more blurred. And you have a fast shutter speed if you have like a very small fraction. So if it's like 1/800 or 1/1000, you have a fast shutter speed. But if your fraction is like 1/60 or like 1/80, then you have a slower shutter speed. Next, I will be talking about the ISO, and basically ISO is kind of like the same thing as aperture and shutter speed. They all like kind of correspond with each other. And basically ISO basically allows your camera to capture more noise or more information, which is like basically what you're taking a picture of. So it's going to be more detailed or more like in the grainy effect. So if you have a high ISO, then your picture will be much brighter, but it will be like too noisy, in the sense. Well, it just depends. At the same time, it just depends on what the look you're going for. So if you have a higher ISO, that means your picture will be a little bit more grainier, like a little bit more overexposed, if that's what you're looking for. And you have a high ISO if your ISO is like in the 1000s or like 2000s, depending on the camera that you have, of course. But if you have a lower ISO, basically this allows the picture to be darker and less noise, so more concentrated. And you have a low ISO if it's like in less than 500, so like 100, 200, 300. And that's basically the gist of it. And yeah.